I've been doing this whole YouTube thing for an entire year now, which is still pretty wild to me. This is by far the longest I've ever stuck with any kind of creative endeavor like this, and recently I've been thinking over what I want this channel to look like in 2019. I'll have another more general update video coming out tomorrow that will cover all the top level changes, but there is one new addition coming to the channel in the next year that I wanted to go over in more detail. As I just alluded to, this channel is far from the only creative outlet / hobby I've tried my hand at over the years. Before I started making videos, I tried on multiple occasions to get into critical writing, and before I was talking about video games, I was mostly analyzing movies. In fact, as strange as it may sound, I would actually say I'm more critically knowledgeable about film than I am games. I certainly know a lot more about how films are made than I do video games. And I wanted to try and stretch that critical muscle again and bring more of those conversations to this channel. So I'm resurrecting a series that I never completed a few years ago, and it's called The Defining 25. For the entirety of 2019, every other week on Monday, I'll be releasing a new video essay over one of the 25 films that have shaped and defined the way I view myself, the way I view the world, and the way I view art in general. There are a few more guidelines I gave myself while creating this list, but why don't I go ahead and just show you the movies I chose first, and we can get into those details more once we're done. Alright, here it goes. My Defining 25 consists of Adaptation, Akira, American Psycho, The Big Lebowski, Black Swan, The Cabin in the Woods, Donnie Darko, Drive, Fight Club, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Interstellar, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, The Lego Movie, Oldboy, Pan's Labyrinth, Paranorman, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea? Wait, what? Princess Mononoke, Prometheus, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Short Term 12, Stardust, Taxi Driver, There Will Be Blood, and Under the Skin. Okay, so the first thing you should know is that I made it a rule that I couldn't have a director show up on this list more than once. I didn't want this to turn into a series about the filmographies of Darren Aronofsky or David Fincher with just a few extra films thrown in to get us to 25. I didn't want this to just be my 25 favorite films or the 25 essential films I think you should watch to better understand the medium. Now, with this in mind, you probably also noticed that the list was in alphabetical order, and that's also the order we'll be covering them in. And this was, of course, intentional, because I wanted the list to be as far away from any sort of ranking of quality as possible. When it came down to it, and I was trying to make the final cuts about what movies made it onto the list and which ones got bumped off, I tried to remember that original idea, which movie had a bigger impact on how I view myself, the world, and other works of art. Because really, that's what I want this series to ultimately be about. When I originally came up with this idea back in the start of 2015, the list was a pretty straightforward collection of my favorite films. Now for the record, the list didn't really change all that much. I didn't keep track, but I definitely swapped out less than 5 films overall. And yet, even though it's only been 4 years, my relationship to these movies has changed quite a bit. Or at least, I think it has? Back in 2015, I was a lot closer to these movies. As you can probably tell from the selections I made, I'm definitely someone who came of age appreciating film around the early 2010s. And at the start of 2015, I had probably watched, albeit not necessarily for the first time, most of these films within the last year or so. Now it's the start of 2019, and honestly, I'm not sure if I've rewatched any of these movies in the intervening 4 years. I'm sure some of these films are still going to resonate with me, but almost certainly some of them will not, and I guess I'm kinda counting on that? Because as I already said, if I had gone ahead and actually done this project back in 2015, it would have been a pretty basic exercise in me just telling you why these 25 films were so special to me. But now I'm hoping to explore something a little more nuanced. I want to use what little bit of hindsight I now have and see what happens when that relationship to a work of art changes. What happens when you go back to something that was once so important to you and you don't like what you see anymore? There are undoubtedly going to be films on this list that don't make my younger self look good. And yeah, I'm talking about Fight Club here. But the truth is, I'm okay with that. That's the difference between doing something like this when you're still technically in your early 20s and doing it when you're now uncomfortably close to 30. Your tastes change, and even though you may not feel any older, you have a much broader perspective to work with. But I don't expect this series to be all doom and gloom, because I'm also curious to find some of those films that do still hold up, or see which films I gain a whole new appreciation for this time around. When it comes down to it, I guess one of the most exciting things about doing this is I don't really know what the final product is going to look like. These are the basic goals I have going in, but what the series looks like at the beginning is sure to be different from what it looks like at the end. And to be honest, the perfectionist in me kinda hates that, but Discovering how things change over time is sort of at the thematic core of this whole idea, so I guess I'll just have to learn to live with it. So I guess that means there's really nothing left to do except start watching some movies and see where the series takes me, and hopefully you'll join me along for the ride. Okay, now that we've gotten all the setup out of the way, I'll see you all back here in 2 weeks to talk about our first film in the Defining 25, Spike Jonze's adaptation.